Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to Let's Talk, the series where we're bigger than you thought. This is your friendly neighborhood Birdman, and today we're talking Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania.
When are you gonna come down? When are you going to land? Or should I...
After going quantum in the 80s, Janet Van Dyne has been stuck in the quantum realm for the past 30 years. Before she gets rescued in Ant-Man and the Wasp, a strange traveler crash lands in the realm with a derelict ship. Happy to find another stranded human, Janet helps the traveler repair his ship, only to discover this traveler is Kang, an extra-dimensional conqueror from the 31st century with incredible and powerful technology. Upon this discovery, Janet sabotages Kang's ship and, along with other freedom fighters in the realm, struggles against him for the next couple of years. In the modern day, Scott Lang's daughter, along with Hank Pym, has been studying the quantum realm and sends a signal down to the quantum realm that inadvertently alerts Kang to their presence. Kang promptly brings the family down to his side with the intention of using Hank Pym's technology to escape his tiny prison. So, here we are, Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I can't say that the phase has started with a bang. To be clear, this phase stuff is arbitrary anyway, because Phase 5 could have easily started with No Way Home, being that the phase is mainly going to be dealing with the multiverse. So far, we've gotten 2 multiverse films and 1 show since Endgame, and those probably should have been considered Phase 5 properties, but I'm going off on a tangent. This film is okay, which seems to be par for the course for Ant-Man films. Let's talk about the good. What I love most about this film is its atmosphere and world building. The opening sequence, and heck, much of the second act, feel like an extended Star Wars cantina scene. There is an entire universe packed into the quantum realm with imaginative aliens and human-like creatures, and it feels ripped straight out of a galaxy far, far away. Seriously, if no one told you this was set in a micro-universe, you'd assume this was set in space, or even a Guardians movie. If it weren't for Kang and his minions, the quantum realm looks like a nice place to live, if you're going to be stuck there for 30 years anyway. The next best thing about this movie is Kang himself, or rather Jonathan Majors. This man has only been in professional production since 2017, but you'd swear he'd been a part of Hollywood for decades. He has that kind of presence in literally anything I've seen him in, and man, does it shine through here. If there were any doubts whether his Kang would be an intimidating presence on the level of Thanos, watch this film. I adored his portrayal of this character, and I appreciate the respect Disney shows the character. Throughout the film, you have various characters talk about how Kang is so persuasive as well as charming, and when you listen to John speak, you understand exactly why. The actor is extremely charismatic, and you completely understand why anyone would fall for him. John has a way of lulling you in that makes you forget his character is a murderous tyrant. Kang is an absolute beast in this film, and John's acting is superb. The only issue I have is that this film doesn't have enough Kang. He fully shows up towards the end of the second act, which is an unorthodox way of introducing the main antagonist. But have no fear, people. John's Kang is the main antagonist of Phase 5, so you will be getting more of him, and you will love it. As for the rest of the gang, Paul, Michelle, Michael, and Catherine do a decent job with the material they're given, most especially Michelle. Pfeiffer is the film's secondary protagonist, which at first made me call into question the validity of the title of this film, but then I realized Janet is the original Wasp, so the title sticks. If you didn't catch that, I'm implying that Evangeline Lilly's Wasp is something of a background character in this film. Which is fine, as I've never really cared for her portrayal of the character anyway, but I assume this would be disappointing for her fans. This movie is a Paul Rudd, Jonathan Majors, and Michelle Pfeiffer vehicle, and I think it's important to point that out. A quick aside, my streaming audience is already aware, but I'm not watching HBO's The Last of Us TV show. I bring this up because I'm not aware how great of a job Bella Ramsey is doing as Ellie, but if I were casting the show, I would have absolutely given the role of Ellie to Catherine Newton. She is essentially Ellie in this film, almost as if she played the game in preparation for this role. Anyway, tangent over. As for the things I didn't like, the main one would be the film's pace. If you only watched this film once, you'd be tricked into thinking this movie is fast-paced, but I've seen the movie 3 times now, and each subsequent viewing made me more and more uncomfortable in my seat. This film is a borderline slow burn, guys, but because it's an MCU movie, you might not think so at first. MCU movies, especially on the first watch, tend to have all of your attention because you're trying to figure out where the story is going to go, what cameo is going to happen, and how this ties into the overarching plot of the MCU. But I gotta tell you, this is one of the few MCU films that I've found to be a slog on the rewatch. I truly dislike that this film underuses Jonathan Majors, and I'm aware the title is Ant-Man and the Wasp, but when you have a compelling actor and villain, you have to give them screen time. This is one of the criticisms of The Dark Knight, that Heath wasn't in it much. Maybe the writers were unaware who they had, but dude, if you have John, put John on the fucking screen. Another issue I had was the hilarious but unfortunate mistreatment of MODOK. Now, MODOK being in this film could be considered a mild spoiler, but that's only if you had your head in the sand, as the character was literally in the trailer. While I found MODOK to be entertaining, the comic book purist in me is kind of annoyed with who is playing the character as well as what happens with him. MODOK is a source of comedy within this movie, and that I don't mind. In fact, I want to take this opportunity to chastise the people upset with comedy in the MCU. First of all, this movie doesn't overdo the comedy, like, say, Thor: Love and Thunder did. To some, that's a good thing, and I would include myself in that group. However, I will say that people who get mad that the MCU is a comedy franchise seriously boggles my mind. That element has been present since Iron Man, where they turned a stoic and serious character with alcoholism into a comedian. I think if you're going to complain about comedy in this franchise, you have to start with Iron Man 15 years ago, but of course nobody does, and instead you get the usual excuses when you point this out. My thing is, if you don't like the comedy, or hell, the MCU, just stop going to the theater. They're not going to change, and there will always be comedy in these movies because the mainstream loves it, and all 3 of my viewings were packed with people laughing at everything involving MODOK. In the end, I thought this movie was just okay. Paul Rudd does Paul Rudd things, the gorgeous visuals and amazing atmosphere does the quantum realm justice, and Jonathan Majors is a major force. See what I did there? Personally, I lamented the lack of Kang scenes, and the ones we get, we don't really see him in action. MODOK is funny, but basically wasted. While most of the visuals are stunning, it still, like most other MCU properties, has issues with its CGI that are apparently blue or green screen related. There's a scene with Janet, Hope, and Hank meeting a group of quantum realm inhabitants that is obviously on a blue screen stage, and after Avatar: The Way of Water, this is embarrassing for the biggest media franchise in the world. It has a host of pacing issues, and the plot is entirely centered around familiarizing the audience with Kang and setting up the Avengers: The Kang Dynasty, which, frankly, should have been accomplished with Loki. A C+. Oh, and there are 2 credit sequences, so stay for them.